The National Heritage Academy loomed before Ariana, a gleaming monolith of steel and polarized glass designed to both impress and intimidate. Unlike the ancient universities that had once fostered free thought, the academy had been built with a single purpose: to instill in young minds the authorized chronicle of how the unified sovereign alliance had saved civilization from the chaos of democracy. Ariana swiped her credential chip at the entrance, letting the facial recognition system register her arrival. Her classroom, Patriot Indoctrination Chamber 12, was on the 43rd floor, overlooking what had once been called Washington, D.C., now known simply as Central Command. "Good morning, Educator Chen," chirped the AI assistant embedded in her desk. "Today's approved lesson plan has been updated to emphasize the Supreme Patriot's role in preventing the climate wars of the 2030s. A mandatory viewing of Lapmot's wisdom, The Environmental Salvation, has been added to your schedule." Acknowledged, Ariana replied automatically, her mind elsewhere. She had spent her morning commute identifying 6 students who might be receptive to the truth, young people whose monitoring implants occasionally flickered yellow, indicating unauthorized thought patterns. Each of them had, at some point, asked a question that deviated from the approved curriculum. Elias Morgan Woodard was first among them. The 16-year-old son of a low-level information ministry clerk and a sanitation worker, he possessed a dangerous combination of brilliance and sincerity. 3 months ago, he had asked why pre-Reformation texts contained references to something called voting rights that differed from the current citizen voice allocation system, where speaking privileges were assigned based on loyalty scores. The classroom filled as the bell tone sounded. 28 students filed in, taking their assigned seats with the practiced precision of those raised under constant surveillance. Each wore the standard educational uniform, gray synthetic fabric with citizen identification numbers embroidered in blue. Their monitoring implants, small metallic discs embedded at their temples, glowed steady blue, indicating acceptable thought patterns. "Rise for the Pledge of Unity," announced the AI assistant. The students stood in unison, their right hands placed over their hearts, their left hands extended in the open-palmed salute of the Patriot State. "I pledge my body, mind, and future to the unified sovereign alliance," they recited. "I renounce the chaos of choice for the harmony of guidance. I embrace the wisdom of the Supreme Patriot, whose vision protects us all. Unity is strength. Dissent is destruction. Loyalty is life." "You may be seated," Ariana said, activating the classroom's holographic display. The simulated image of Dan Lapmot's Ascension Day speech appeared on the wall behind her. His artificial intelligence reconstruction, kept alive through technology long after his physical body had failed, continued to address the nation daily. "And so we protected our great alliance from those who would destroy it," the AI Lapmot was saying, its algorithm perfectly replicating his distinctive hand gestures. "The enemies of order and unity have been vanquished." The students sat perfectly still, the monitoring implants at their temples glowing blue, indicating attentiveness and patriotic sentiment. All except for Elias, whose implant flickered between blue and yellow. "Remember," Ariana said, reciting the mandatory opening to every history lesson, "our present is perfect because our past was preserved." The students repeated the mantra in unison. "Today," she continued, carefully modulating her voice for the classroom sensors, "we discuss the Great Reformation and the wisdom of Supreme Patriot Lapmot in preserving our environment." As she spoke the official version, she moved between the rows of desks, seemingly checking the students' neural interface connections to the classroom's information feed. With practiced sleight of hand, she dropped small crystal shards, copies of the historical files, into the pockets of her chosen 6 students. Elias received the master copy, slipped into his tablet case as she leaned over to adjust his neural feed. His eyes met hers for the briefest moment, a flicker of understanding passing between them. He had felt the weight of the data node being placed in his possession. His implant flashed yellow, then quickly returned to blue. The Supreme Patriot recognized that individual freedoms had to be temporarily suspended to address the climate emergency, Ariana continued, returning to the front of the classroom. This temporary measure became permanent as the benefits of centralized authority became clear. "Can anyone tell me what those benefits were?" Hands rose obediently. "Citizens were no longer burdened with incorrect choices," answered one student mechanically. "Resource allocation became more efficient without the interference of market forces," said another. "Very good," Ariana nodded. Today we'll examine how the pre-Reformation government's insistence on individual rights prevented necessary action until Supreme Patriot Lupmot took control. She activated the mandatory propaganda video, using the cover of darkness, and the students diverted attention to place another data node, this one containing instructions, under Elias's tablet. The video played, showing digitally enhanced footage of Lupmot single-handedly solving the climate crisis through decisive leadership, a sanitized term for the forced relocation of millions and the summary execution of corporate leaders who had resisted nationalization. When the lights came back on, Ariana noticed a flicker of movement at the classroom door. Through the small window, she caught a glimpse of a security ministry uniform, black with silver trim, the mark of the Thought Compliance Division. Her heart raced, but her face remained impassive. Had someone detected her actions? Were they watching her specifically, or was this a routine inspection? For your assignment, she said calmly, you will create a comparative analysis of decision-making efficiency between democratic processes and unified leadership during environmental crises. The Supreme Patriot's approach saved billions of lives by eliminating the debate that had paralyzed previous administrations. The door slid open. Two officers entered, their faces obscured by reflective helmets that analyzed every micro-expression of those they observed. Citizen Educator 12-98A3, the taller officer announced. You will accompany us for a loyalty verification interview. The classroom fell silent. Such summons were common enough to be familiar, rare enough to be terrifying. Of course, officers, Ariana replied, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. Students, please continue with the assignment under AI supervision. As she gathered her things, she glanced at Elias. His implant remained steadfastly blue, his face a mask of concentration on his tablet. Not a flicker of concern for his teacher. Good. He understood. The officers escorted her through the hallways of the academy, past classrooms where other educators were delivering the same carefully crafted lies about history. In the elevator, Ariana prepared herself mentally. She had been questioned before. All educators were subjected to regular loyalty assessments. But this felt different. They led her not to the standard interview rooms but to a secure transport vehicle waiting outside. Where are we going? She asked, maintaining the confused innocence of a loyal citizen with nothing to hide. Information Ministry, Central Evaluation Division, the officer replied. A review of your historical research methodology has been ordered. Ariana's blood ran cold. The Central Evaluation Division was responsible for detecting and correcting historical inconsistencies, a euphemism for identifying those who questioned the official narrative. As the transport vehicle rose into the air, joining the streams of traffic between the towering monoliths of Central Command, Ariana gazed out at the city below. The once magnificent monuments of democracy had been retrofitted with surveillance equipment and propaganda displays. The National Mall, once a green space for public gathering, was now a vast parade ground where loyalty demonstrations were held weekly. In the distance, she could see the Pentagon, now the headquarters of the Homeland Security Forces, its 5 sides illuminated with constantly changing patterns of patriotic imagery. Beyond that, the remains of Arlington National Cemetery, where the heroes of the old republic lay buried beneath markers that had been altered to remove any mention of their defense of constitutional principles. The vehicle descended toward a nondescript building adjacent to the former Library of Congress, now the Ministry of Approved Information. As they landed, Ariana silently bid farewell to the crystal data nodes she had distributed. Whether they would bear fruit or be discovered and destroyed, her part was done. She had planted the seeds of truth. Now she would face the consequences. The officers led her through a series of security checkpoints, each more invasive than the last. At the final barrier, she was required to place her hand on a scanner that analyzed not just her fingerprints but her pulse, blood chemistry, and subtle electrical patterns in her nervous system, all indicators of deception. To her surprise, the scanner flashed green. She was escorted to a small, sterile room with nothing but a metal table and 2 chairs. After 20 minutes, a technique designed to increase anxiety, the door opened. But instead of the black uniformed interrogator she expected, a woman in the grey robes of the Historical Preservation Council entered. Dr. Chen, the woman said, her voice cultured and precise. I am Counselor Vance. Thank you for your patience. Ariana remained silent, analyzing every detail of this unexpected development. The Historical Preservation Council was the highest authority on approved history. They didn't conduct routine loyalty checks. "You've been with the Academy for 12 years now," Councillor Vance continued, consulting a thin, transparent tablet. "Your loyalty scores are exemplary. Your students consistently demonstrate high levels of patriotic understanding. And yet," she paused, placing the tablet on the table. "And yet your personal research requests have been curious. Accessing pre-Reformation economic data. Requesting climate migration patterns from the transition period. Examining birth and death records from specific regions during the early days of the Unified Sovereign Alliance." Ariana maintained her composure. "As an educator, I seek to understand the full context of our history so that I can better explain the necessity of the Supreme Patriot's actions." Councillor Vance smiled thinly. "A commendable attitude. However, we've noticed patterns in your research that suggest you may be assembling a narrative that deviates from approved historical understanding. I assure you, Councillor, my only goal is to strengthen the official narrative through deeper contextual knowledge." "Indeed." The councillor's eyes narrowed slightly. "Then perhaps you can explain why you requested access to the sealed archives regarding Julia Chen, a known dissident from the early Reformation period. An unusual coincidence, given your family name." Ariana had prepared for this possibility. "Not a coincidence, Councillor. When I discovered we shared a surname, I became concerned about potential ancestral connections that might cast doubt on my loyalty. I sought to understand if there was any relation so that I could formally renounce any such connection. It was a gamble, acknowledging the potential relationship rather than denying it, but denial would be easily disproven through genetic records." Councillor Vance studied her for a long moment. "A prudent approach. However, given the sensitivity of your position as an educator, we'll need to conduct a more thorough evaluation. You are hereby reassigned to the Historical Verification Center until this matter is resolved." Ariana's heart sank. The Historical Verification Center was a euphemism for a facility where suspected historical saboteurs were subjected to intensive psychological evaluation, often involving memory extraction technology. "Of course, Councillor. I welcome the opportunity to demonstrate my loyalty." "Excellent. You will be escorted to your new quarters immediately. Your personal belongings will be delivered after they have been thoroughly examined." As Councillor Vance rose to leave, she paused at the door. "One more thing, Dr. Chen. A former student of yours was arrested last night, Nordia Trusp. She had some very interesting stories to tell about your meetings. I thought you should know." The door closed, leaving Ariana alone with the devastating knowledge that her network had been compromised. Everything she had worked for was in jeopardy. Her only hope now lay with 6 teenagers and some crystal data nodes, a fragile foundation for resistance against the most powerful surveillance state in human history.